go 70 miles an hour on the highway. Now, this is, again, a standard-bodied coupe from Packard in 1940. If we swing over here, this is also a 1940 Packard convertible coupe, but with a body by Howard Dutch Darren, who was one of the greatest designers of the classic era. And you can see the contrast, particularly in height, between these two cars. The standard 160 coupe on the left, and on the right, the Darren coupe. And if we get alongside, you can really see the contrast in height of these two cars. Now, Darren worked out of a shop in Hollywood. He had worked previously in Paris during the 1920s and had a very successful career designing for kings and queens and celebrities all over the world. And then in 1937, he came back to Hollywood at the request of Darryl Zanuck and started designing cars pretty much exclusively for the Hollywood crowd. And in 1940, Packard decided to catalog his custom creations and put them in their catalog so they were available to a wider audience. It's a beautiful car. This one is built on a 120 chassis, which has a smaller engine, but Darren, is said, actually preferred the 120 chassis, and he would take a standard coupe like this in a 120 format, and he would chop the top off and lower the hood, and came up with this creation, which is quite beautiful. We're going to go back to 1929. A remarkable car. This is an L29 Cord, and this is generally acknowledged as being the first production front-wheel drive car. It was made in America and made in Indianapolis, Auburn Cord Duesenberg Company. Actually, Auburn, Indiana, I should say. And these were way ahead of their time. And unfortunately, they were introduced in the fall of 1929, just right before the stock market crash. So they, unfortunately, did not have wide sales, but they are certainly spectacular. And this restoration of this one, particularly in black and orange, is absolutely gorgeous. The lever you see coming out of the dashboard, that's the gear shift knob, which goes straight through, down the hood, and down to the front of the engine, where it drops down and activates the transmission, which is right at the front here, right behind that cover is where the transmission sits. This also has wood lights, which were, I don't know if they were necessarily popular, but they were certainly an exclusive accessory available in the 20s, and you often see Cords with these. The interesting thing on this car, which you rarely see, is the fact that it not only has wood lights up front, it actually has wood light tail lights, which are really pretty neat. And again, those you don't see. And some people say if you drive them, you can't see either, but that's another story. This is really a beautifully done car. It's brought here to the show by Joel Nystrom. I'm not going to show you all the cars today, but we'll show you some of these, which are certainly spectacular. 1930 Stutz. This is an M8. Stutz were made in Indianapolis. They had a great racing history from the Indy 500. They were called the car that made good in a day because they placed highly in the first Indy 500. And they were really, again, a beautiful car, and by this time they were very elegant as well. And this is a convertible sedan, four-door convertible. 28 Packard in a periwinkle blue. Unusual color combination, but quite striking on this car. And this is a dual windshield phaeton. Windshield for the folks in the back seat. It's not a dual cowl. It does not have the metal cowl, but it does have the cover you can snap on. So if you're in the back seat, you don't get blown around too much. Again, you can see there's some great cars here. Let's take a look around. One of the highlights of the show is right here. I'm coming up on. The license plate might give you a clue. As will the hubcaps. Yes, it's a Duesenberg, 1935. This Duesenberg was custom built for Bill Robinson, Bill Bojangles Robinson, famous dancer. And he ordered this and had a custom body made for it. The price new in 1935 was $17,500. Now the chassis alone was $10,000 for a Duesenberg, so it's a $7,500 body. That would be equivalent to over $300,000 today to make this car. And today, you probably couldn't make this car because you couldn't find the craftsman to do it. The body on this is made by Rolston. And again, it's absolutely pristine. It for many years was owned by Bill Dybel up in the Seattle area. And he had it for about 50 years. And then Ron Hillierides now in California owns this. And it's absolutely a gorgeous car and certainly the best example of what you would call a one-off body, a one-off creation on a Duesenberg chassis. Here's one you have probably not seen before. This is a Locomobile, 1920. Locomobiles were some of the most expensive cars made in the day back in the, what we call the nickel era of 1915 to 1925. And they were certainly really an impressive and big car. This has a what would be called a Sedanka DeVille style body on it. Open driver's compartment. In the back you have a cowl. Lift the cowl, fold down the windshield first, lift the cowl, open the doors. You can get in the back. It's a little bit of a process to get in, not too bad. And then you do have a top in the back. So, a very elegant car. Dual spares. This is owned by Bob Joint, a longtime member of the Classic Car Club and Classic Car Club Museum. One of the most knowledgeable persons about locomobiles today. You got a wide variety here, you can see. This is a remarkable car. This is a 1931 New York Auto Show Franklin. And the body is by Walker. And it's really amazingly done. I use that word amazing, but these cars are amazing. If you look at the body, in 31 most cars still had running boards, really up until about 1940 in most cases. But you look at the body of this, and it actually curves out at the lower part of the panel. Really a striking car, and of course Franklins were air-cooled, which makes it one of the few air-cooled cars made during the Classic era.
I picked up the phone, I saw you, I don't know why. I'm surprised you didn't hear me because I probably was talking in my bumble.
Another 40 Packard, they're very popular. 1942, difference in the grill, the horizontal grill in a 42, that's a 160, again the larger engine. 1931 Buick. Don't see a lot of Buicks out of this era. This is a beautiful one. Full classic, model 96. This 1940 Packard I know very well. This was owned by a good friend of mine, Vern Howell, in the Portland area. And when Vern passed away, I handled the sale of this car to a gentleman in Ohio, Dan Hanlon. And it is a one-off Durham body, the only one made, on a 180 Packard chassis. And again, made by Durham in Rosemont, Pennsylvania. You can see it's a senior award winner here at the Classic Car Club. It's really a beautiful combination. Vern had this nearly done, and he showed it once actually before he passed away, and then Dan took it and finished it up, and here we are on the lawn at Hickory Corners. Another Buick. Another Buick. Not just another. This is a 1932. This is a model 95. And again, an open Phaeton. (1930) Packard Phaeton. It's a model 740, 140-inch wheelbase. They are not a small car. They're really not difficult to drive, though. They really are handled pretty well, given the era. And you look at the contrast of 1930, then we go to 1947. 17 years difference in age. The Cadillac is a 62 series convertible. Beautifully done. You notice the barns behind. If you've not been to the Gilmore Museum campus, it was started in the 1960s. Donald Gilmore had a personal collection of cars, and he kept them in barns on this 90-acre parcel of land that he had out here in the country. And then when he passed away, the family opened up the museum to the public, and more car museums started gathering and putting their buildings there as well. Classic Car Club here. The Pierce Arrow Club is right here, with a beautiful display of Pierce Arrows. Further down the line, you can see behind these cars, that is the Cadillac Museum, which looks like a 1940s, 50s Cadillac dealership. And beyond that is the Model A Ford Museum, which looks like a Ford dealership back in the 1920s and 30s. The Lincoln Museum is straight ahead beyond the trees. And again, you can spend at least 2 days here, if not a week here, and possibly not see everything. It's pretty remarkable. So let's just give you a taste of what's here at Hickory Corners at the Classic Car Club Museum experience, as it's called. And it is an experience to come here and see these cars, hear them run, realize they aren't stagnant displays. They actually do run and drive, and the folks who have them love them and use them regularly. Again, I appreciate you joining me today. I'm David Charvet with Charvet Classic Cars, and hope to see you again. Thanks.